to try calling it again. Just 1 sec now, everyone. Okay, let's try this again. I can still get feedback. Okay, we're just going to do the best I can here now. All right, so today we're going to be doing Role of the Leader. Just a reminder for everyone to put their *6 into mute if you can. That would be great. So today I'm kind of excited actually because this is the end of the season and it's kind of exciting to kind of do a little recap. So part of what we're going to do today is a little bit of recap. We're going to have a little bit, I'm just going to pull it up here now, sorry, I'm getting all the technology figured out. We talked last time a little bit about role of the leader, and we talked about leader. Start to sort of bring up the concept of leadership styles, which we're going to really get into today and do a few little couple case studies just to sort of see if everyone gets their heads wrapped around it. And we're also going to talk about which is your dominant style. And I'm going to hopefully, if you're in groups, you can do a little takeaway based on that. And leadership best practice. We're going to do a little synopsis of what we've talked about over the last 6 or 7 months and really sort of hone in. So if you haven't been on the call before, this will show you some snippets of some key areas in leadership. And if not, if you've been through the sessions, it's a little recap to say, is that something I still need to think about more? It's a little refresher. Hopefully that will be helpful. And I've got my headset. I can't hear very well. So if you do unmute yourself, I'll try to hear you best I can because I'm just using my speaker at the moment. But you can certainly put it in the chat box if there's any questions at all by any means. All right. If you can't hear me or you have any problems, again, put it in there. Okay, so with regard to, we talked briefly, this is one of the last slides we had on the last call, around organizational climate. So it's about how you feel in an office. And how I feel in an office can be impacted by many things. But two of the main areas, which take up most of what it feels like in an office or it feels like in a team, is it a positive environment, is it a negative environment, what sort of feels like, is with regards to customer satisfaction business results. So in other words, if your organization, your team's doing really well, everyone feels a bit more upbeat. Maybe the economy is tagging along, doing really well. Conversely, if the economy drops, or like we've had, I know in Newfoundland we've had lots of ups and downs, but Atlantic Canada has certainly had ups and downs, then you can feel, where you are. So that's something that impacts how we feel. But the predominant piece is your style as a leader, or if you're a future leader. So everything that you do impacts how it feels to work there, how engaged people are going to be. And that can change from leader to leader. So one office or one team in an office can certainly feel one way where another one can feel another. We can all relate to that. So it's how things are done here, how it feels to work here. So we look at the different styles. So we're going to go through 6 different leadership styles. These are Goleman styles. And you can certainly get lots of information on the internet, or anyone can certainly feel free to email me if they want any articles or anything on it. But we're going to walk through each one individually, and then we're going to talk about which one you're going to see in a couple of little cases, very short, what you can sort of see if you can read sort of which style is which, and also think about your dominant style. So one of those things is when you think about it, what's natural for you? What's the most common thing you might use? Or under stress, which one are you most likely to use? So that's sort of a way to help you figure out what that style could be. So with regard to the different styles, so here's what they are. We have coaching, commanding, pace setting, democratic, affiliative, and visionary. Whether you've seen these before They might have different names, so there's different versions of leadership styles out there, some similarities. This is a very common one, so you might have seen it before, so this could be a refresher for you. So visionary. So can anyone sort of send me something quick? We talked about last time. It's one quick visionary. Who's a visionary in the world? As a leader, as a world leader, as someone that's influential, or could be someone local that stands out for you. Just if one person can put in the chat, what's one person? Steve Jobs, absolutely. Got people through some hard times. I know he wasn't the easiest, but he had a vision. So he had a sense of moving people toward a shared dream. And when we talk about climate, each of these impact climate differently. So visionary, if you think about it, I'm sure in the early days of Apple, that there were some struggling days, and people just thinking about what they could accomplish as a team made them feel excited. They probably could potentially have done with not a lot of pay, super long hours, any of the above, but it made them drive towards something they really believed in. So it's a very strong impact on climate. In terms of different behaviors, I just highlighted one there, and that's key if you want to have a show a leadership style, a visionary style, is selling the vision. So people understanding it. If it's your vision, as an example, if it's primarily one person's vision as opposed to a team's vision, you really have to sell it. Even a leadership team, if they have a vision, if they've worked together to figure out their long-term vision of what you want to be when you grow up, then it's key to sell it all the time. This is a really good style to use, period. It's extremely positive. But at the same token, it's also really good with leadership changes. If you've been through a significant change in the organization, to draw on this and let people really see what they're doing and why they're striving so hard to get to where they need to go. So in terms of it's effective. So when things have changed, you need a new direction or a new clear direction to be communicated. We all know how fast things are changing in the world. Sometimes just reassessing or resetting that vision is really important. And if you're seen as one of the top folks, I mean, needless to say, someone at any level can create a vision of a small team, but ideally you have to have one as an organization as well. So that was one. So coaching is another one. We've done a session on coaching, so if you attended that session, you'll have a sense of what it means. One of the key things in coaching is teaching people how to fish. So in other words, helping them help themselves. It's highly, highly positive on climate. So I know my leader is connected to me. They're asking me questions. They're supporting me. They're helping me sort things out myself and giving me the authority to make some of my own calls in my job. So coaching can be very inspiring in creating a wonderful climate. It does take time. So you really have to commit to coaching. You have to think about the moment. Does it make sense to sit down with an employee and walk through a challenge that they have and let them try to come up with some pros and cons and which approach they should take. But it's great when you've got some key people in your team who have potential and really need to excel and, maybe to get to the next level and kind of take on some new pieces or take on some new skills. It creates a long-term piece. A lot of trust can be developed through coaching. And it's really important when you're looking at the long-term. So how am I going to do this for succession planning would be a key thing, right? That you might use a coaching leadership style. If there's definitely some variations between where they are now and where they want to be. It can be very creative, it can be fun, but again, it takes time, so you have to commit to that. So that's coaching. Affiliative is the group hug. So it's the huddle, it's the football team huddle, it's the looking at the positive. So it's all around creating harmony, so you want to pull everyone together. So oftentimes we have some struggle, right? So affiliative style can be really helpful when you want to get people excited around something, or look, we can do this, we can absolutely do this, or what a wicked thing we just went through. That was really tough, let's celebrate, right? Let's look at all the great things we accomplished. So it can be extremely positive. The downside, though, and I'm a natural affiliative, so I can relate to this, is that affiliative focuses on the positive. So doesn't like to look at the negative. And people that can relate to me here who are more affiliative like harmony, so difficult conversations can be sometimes not the thing that we want to do. Okay, it's all about positive feedback, not constructive. So again, it's one of these necessary leadership styles. We should be able to do all of these styles, But again, predominantly, like this one for me, I had to learn, I had to really commit to having those difficult conversations. So it's really great when you've got a team who knows what they're doing. They've got things sort of happening. They've gone through a tough time. When you've got different groups that you're trying to pull together, it can be really, really helpful. In terms of democratic, now this is one, if you can relate to democratic, it's not necessarily voting. Democratic style, I have a few sort of cautions on this one. It's a great one, don't get me wrong. This one is around generating new ideas. I call this the brainstorming one. So how many times do you go out to your team and ask their opinion and suggestions on things? Highly engaging. The one area which I'll say you got to be very careful about as a leader is making sure people don't believe that this is the answer. Because at the end of the day, if you're the leader, you get to decide. You're going to take all those ideas and options into consideration. Even if the entire team comes up with something, you may know that that's not going to work, and there may be something confidential you can't share. So you have to be very careful. You know, you're soliciting ideas to help you make your decision, not to actually create the decision. Okay? Unless you can. If it's certainly going to be a joint decision, that's wonderful, but otherwise, not so much. So in terms of looking at direction, pulling out ideas, this is really great if you're someone who has a really good, for example, technical group, experienced technical group. If I was a new leader and I went into a new technical space, and these people are experts, of course I'm going to draw on their experience, right? It's around getting their ideas, getting their perspectives. Maybe it's a new geography that you're not used to. Whatever it is, you can trust them to help develop the appropriate direction. So it's helping you develop that direction. So I want to make sure that's clear. Great for consensus building. If you can, even if you drop pieces of their ideas that couldn't do exactly what you wanted or what we agreed on or we talked about, but what I did do, because these are the areas that I could do. And again, if you have trust in the team, it's easy. Yeah, I trust Heather that she's going to do what she can of what we talked about. And if not, there must be a very good reason for it. Okay, so this is the brainstorming the ideas generation. Pace setting, just like the little guy up on the top right, is about we're busy, we're running, we got a deadline. Okay, so this is, think of renewal time. Maybe, I don't know if you have an end of year, you know, big hump of renewals as an example. In pace setting, I don't have time to teach you. I don't have time to spend time with you. We literally have to run. I know what I'm doing. Follow me. I know I'm the leader, but I don't have time to spend with you as such. It's not good long term, because pace setting, if you're a pace setter, it's often very high expectations of others, always driving, always pushing, always making people run faster. So long term, you can imagine now, that could be extremely exhausting. So if you're a pace setter, absolutely all these are needed. You just got to think about, can I do this long term without exhausting my team and potentially having turnover? It's really good. It can be high. Think about the times when you've gotten through renewals and it's been wicked and everybody's pitched in and it's been a real team effort. Absolutely, that's a great time to do pace setting, but say it's for 3 weeks. Maybe it's a certain time of the year where you've got some big, or maybe some of your monster clients where, whew, we got through that. One of the things about these other ones which aren't as positive on climate is it can be positive on climate because you got through something, but you need to follow it up with a more positive leadership style, such as affiliative, right? Maybe a little celebration, a little small yay, look what we accomplished, okay? So it's got to be followed up with something, otherwise it can be extremely exhausting. And commanding, just like up on the top, we all come in commanding. So some of us are more comfortable commanding than others. Oftentimes, this is the one that's really looked down upon. But I can tell you, if our building's on fire, do you want a group hug? Do you want me to coach you on what you could possibly do, or do you just need to get out of the building? Sometimes the deadlines are there, the client needs it. You just got to put your foot down and tell people what to do. So as much as that's great, it's emergency, it's got to get done, we've got to have that done, the deadline's tomorrow, I don't care what's going on, you have to make that happen. Sometimes those conversations have to happen. It can be, though, over time, as you can imagine, be highly negative, highly negative. So it's expected immediate compliance. Here's what you got to do, jump, and then the person says how high, okay? So again, if you're someone who has trust in your team, telling people what to do on occasion is perfectly fine. Long term can be exhausting, and chances are you've got some challenges within your team. People are not feeling engaged. So think about that one as as much as I've needed to work on this one. Some people who are this don't feel bad about it because you need to have it. So I always try to be more commanding when I need to be. That's not my style. So again, we've got to be all the different styles. Okay, so I'm going to just present, and I want you to put in the chat, and I appreciate using the chat if you don't mind, because I can only use my speaker here and on my headphones because of the feedback coming through the line. So in terms of styles, so here are all the styles again. So we've got the visionary one, looking at the future, connecting to a dream perspective, long-term vision, affiliative, group hug, democratic, the brainstorming one. We've got the pace setting, which is, come on, run, we got to get this done, follow me. Commanding, telling people what to do when they need to be told. And coaching, which is helping them help themselves. So hopefully that helps understand them. Now just to do a little test sort of for yourselves, and there's no right or wrong here as such, I'm going to read these out. You can see them on the screen. So this is just a couple of little snippets from some case studies I have when I do it in person with folks, and to see if you can come up with one or two different styles, okay, that you see when I read these out. So Cliff is always focused on making his people feel connected to the big picture. It's a day-to-day grind has been intense, and he's found himself focusing on how his team feels about the workload. Processes and bureaucracy continue to plague the team, resulting in his managers feeling disconnected. Still, Cliff maintained the practice of holding regular management meetings where he asks each of the managers their challenges and sees how the team can help them out. So tell me if you can put in the chat, which are there any styles, and I put them down there on the right-hand side so you can remember them. Is there any style that you see there? Someone take a stab at it. Yeah, there's a bit of affiliated. He's got that, you know, sense of he wants to get them more engaged and kind of cheer them on. It's a tough time. He's recognizing that for sure. And he might want to do a bit more affiliative, actually. What else has he been doing? What does he naturally do there? Anyone else want to try another one? Visionary, yeah. So connected to the big picture, right? Understanding, connecting the dots for people to know that what I'm doing makes a difference to the bottom line. What I'm doing makes a difference to the ultimate impact on our customer. Absolutely. What about the last bit? He's maintained, yeah, a little bit of everything. Yeah, good catch. Yeah, good catch for folks there. So the practice of holding regular management meetings and sort of asking their challenges and seeing how the team can help them out. That's a bit of democratic in there as well, right? In that little piece there. That's what I was trying to get at in that piece. So that's excellent. Yes, there's little bits and pieces. And you can see how in the span of a short period of time, theoretically, someone could talk about the big picture and then they could brainstorm ideas. I mean, you should be able to do all these styles at any point in time. And when someone asks a question and you put your foot down, you're using your commanding style, right? So this can be done in a short period of time. You can actually do them all. Okay, let's try another one. Fred is a long-standing leader at WTI. He's a recognized subject matter expert, and I'm sure you guys know about people like this in your industry. I've worked in your industry. He has little patience for those who he believes are less intelligent than him. Now, maybe not those types of folks, but here we go. He's prone to challenge and raise questions when members of his team make recommendations and propose new ideas. Some of his team have expressed their fear of being wrong in Fred's mind. Still, they applaud his high expectations for excellence. When members of his team falter or fail, he shows his disappointment publicly. Typically, he reaches out to them privately after the fact and tells them how they can do better. So what do you see a bit of there? Yes, there's definitely commanding. There's absolutely commanding there style. And we can all relate to that. And historically, when you look at leadership, commanding is one of those pieces. And absolutely, I agree, Marilyn, there's definitely some coaching, and Matthew, there's definitely attempting at coaching. So he's trying. He's definitely a very confident fellow, but he's definitely trying, right? He's trying some new things. And there's probably a touch of one other one that I'd throw in there is possibly a bit of case setting. Right, high expectations, driving people towards those high expectations. Again, we know people kind of like this. It's a little extreme example, but I'm sure you can see it in yourself and others. Okay, last one. So Grace's team is known for their ability to be innovative in structuring deals. Yet in the last few weeks, Grace has seemed distracted and less motivated by new and creative solutions. Grace has told her team that the stress they are under is momentary, that they are under control. Grace sees their pride in the organization is eroding and is anxious to get them back on track. Even though the results have been lackluster, she feels good about the team, trusts the team, and believes they trust each other. That's not a lot of information, but what do you think? We can all relate to a bit of this one, I'm sure. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of affiliative there. And again, you know, with this one, you haven't seen the longer case on this one, but yeah, you know, getting people back on track, sometimes you need to put on some other styles, not just affiliative. Pace setting, and probably a bit more pace setting wouldn't be such a bad thing. I agree. Grace is probably in that, we've all been there with that high intensity, got to get her done perspective, right? So she's trying to balance pace setting with affiliative, which probably isn't such a bad thing, but chances are there's probably some other styles she could use as well around potentially commanding, right, if people aren't getting things done. So just a few little ways, and these aren't easy ones as such, but these are pretty well ones that years ago I based on actual life situations. So it's kind of more, we can all relate to at least one of the scenarios that came up. Now, this slide, you see a lot of things going on. On the top, I'm just going to explain it, and I just want you to look at the greens and the reds. You don't have to understand exactly everything here. Across the top, you'll see clarity, standards, responsibility, flexibility, rewards, and team commitment. Those are things that we talked about last session, which I won't get into all the details around, but those are elements of climate. So how it feels to work somewhere. You know, are you recognizing people? Are you having some flexibility? Do you have standards for performance? Are you clear in roles and expectations? So all those things across the top, and then all the different styles are on your left. So the ones in green, you're going to see, now some of them are up and down, but just generally look at the ones in green. Those are the ones that create positive impact, okay, from a climate perspective. Okay, so those are the ones that are engaging and getting people motivated. The other ones are times and areas where it's not. So if you look at the ones that have the most green, visionary is extremely positive in terms of climate change. So visionary, if you're stuck, if you're not using that style often, you really should start thinking about it. It's not an easy one to do. Again, you can look up things on how to have a more visionary style. But again, how are you talking about the big picture, the long term, keeping people's eye on the ball, right? Why we're doing this and why we're struggling, yeah, but we're doing it for a purpose. Affiliative, again, has quite a few, and then you'll see coaching on the bottom, which absolutely has a lot of positives. So it just gives you a sense of how, based on all the elements of climate and how it feels to work somewhere, the different styles work. But you need all of them. You need absolutely all of them. So I'm going to throw out to you guys now. You won't be able to do it right here on the call, but in the next, I'd say maybe if you had a meeting or people that took advantage of this opportunity for a webinar could sit down and think about those styles. Okay, so you can get these styles online. They're Goleman, so G-O-L-E-M-A-N, Goleman's Leadership Styles. And again, you know, I can certainly send you an article or two if you're interested. But I think it's more around what is my dominant style. And exercises I did actually in my travels, 10 days of travel, which I just got back from yesterday, in Labrador mainly, and I brought it, we actually went through some of these styles, and I actually got people to tell each other what they thought they were before. Like if I think I'm a coach, I actually ask my colleague, what do you think I am? To kind of see how you're coming across. What's the impact? I might be trying to tend to be a coach, but is it actually landing that way? So just a little tip on maybe an exercise that might be helpful for people that took part of the seminar or didn't, and you can get the information and talk about it as a team. Now, so what I'm going to do for the last, 17 minutes or something, I want to walk through some of the things that we've talked about already. Some of you have been on the call before. You might have done a few webinars, not all the webinars, not sure how many you've taken advantage of, if any. So I just want to walk through some of the best practices, some of the things that are recaps of some of the things that we've talked about. Kind of put it all in perspective. What are the key areas of leadership? And where are your gaps? So what is your challenge as a leader or a future leader or a new leader? So some of the key competencies we've talked about and that I work with every day and are down as I'd say, leadership best practice around the world, because I work with different assessments and things. I do work working up to 140 countries around the world, and these are all part of it. So being strategic, clearly communicating, making sure that you actually achieve results, providing feedback, delegation, developing others, you know, that engagement and delegation component kind of ties in there. Innovative solutions, cooperating, collaborating. What does that look like? How do we deal with conflict? You know, how does that work? Change agents and promoting team evolution, so changing things and kind of moving things forward. Influence and persuasion. How do I influence the people around me? How do I influence my customers and persuade people to do things that's required? And how do I care? Right? One of the key components in terms of engagement is, do I show caring? It doesn't have to be the group hug. You don't have to be an affiliative. Just asking someone how they're doing on a report that you know is a tough one shows caring. Okay, so we're just going to delve into these very quickly, just to kind of get a little few major tips, okay, in each of these. So in terms of when we look at strategic, when we did the session around that, we talked about what it means to be strategic and how important it is, you know, in terms of looking at the success of someone if they want to elevate in an organization. Success of an organization is top one, hands down, out of 22 competencies, is 97% of the time was chosen to be strategic. And it was shown as 2 times more important than communication. So if you want to grow and evolve and be a higher level leader, this is essential. So you have to understand the actual business, not just your elements, not just your area. If you're in claims, if you're in wherever, you have to understand the whole business. If you're direct, say, commercial side or the personal line side, you should know each of the other sides, and you should understand claims. Like, just as an example, understanding the entire business. Not everything, just enough to understand it from a high-level perspective. So identifying the impact of the decisions you make on different parts of the organization. So if you're sitting as a team, do we understand how this impacts the whole organization? In terms of thinking strategically about how you do everything you do and how they impact others and why. And the resources. So if I'm looking at Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 all the time, I'm not going to see the bigger picture. I'm not going to think about what we need to do as an organization. Maybe Q1, we got to take a bite out of our budget for something. Allocating resources now to something that may not pan out for another 18 months, right? But the commitment to doing so shows that you're thinking strategically, okay? Assuming everyone's aligned, of course. So that was strategy. So we actually have to just switch over to another thing. So I know that you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. A lot of people have seen this. It's extraordinary how much everyone can relate to that. So the single biggest problem in communications is the illusion that it's actually taking place. Communications is a huge component of what we do every day, from emails to other elements, talking to people, calling at somebody. Everything we do, writing a report is communicating. There's not many things we don't do that have some level of communication to it. So when we're communicating, it's in lots of different ways. So in terms of the actions that I do, so I could be saying and spouting off about all this great leadership stuff. If I can't do that with my team, then what does that actually say? Do my actions actually speak louder than my words? Yes. Actions, and in terms of my team or the people around me, my integrity is going to drop tremendously as a leader. And once that's gone, it affects the trust people have in you. So your actions are even more important often than by what you actually say. So in how you communicate, you cannot not communicate. So right now, you're here, you're learning. What does that show? The fact that you're here and learning, you're here learning now, and you do these webinars, or a number of them, and you don't take it back to the office in terms of fixing something, doing something, changing something in you. What does it say about you? So that's one thing now that we're pulling all this off is for the season is how do you actually make a difference? How do you show up in a way that you can show your learning? So we've talked about this, so I won't go through this particular one, but just around how we speak, the words we use mean so little compared to the tone and body language that we have. Always noticing how you're coming across. As a leader, every time you walk in the door, you're communicating. How you walk in, who you talk to, do you smile, do you not? What does that say? Right? So what does it make people think of you? You don't want to be one of those leaders where everyone's scared to death to see what mood you're in the morning, and they're going to make judgments and assumptions about you. the second you walk in the team. Okay? So again, if people are noticing things, you have to notice them as well. And when you're on the phone, when you're sending emails, are they the right form of communication? Do they make sense? Are people going to read into it? Because if I already have you judged in my mind to be a certain way, I'm going to read into those emails. You know, so understanding, translating what I want to say into actually communicating it so you understand it is the trick. Not an easy one, but it's something that all leaders have to think about all the time. So the right form of communication, am I showing up the way I need to show up? And is the person actually getting that information? So part of communication, of course, is listening. And we walked through some exercises and listening when we did coaching. We talked about coaching, and I think one other time we did as well. So in terms of truly listening, we've got to, like even now that I'm talking, you might be off in another direction. That's fine. But understanding that if you actually have to actively listen to a customer, actively listen to a colleague, it can be very exhausting. You're listening to all the things that they are doing. You're listening to what they say, what they do, their tone, what they're not saying, certain words that they might use, what does that mean, how do you be curious about it and not judgmental, how do you minimize those distractions? So when someone walks in and you're on your phone, what does that show? It's only 30% you're actually going to hear in them of what they're saying. 30%. So the majority of it might be long gone. You're not going to hear exactly, and there could be something really important there that you're going to miss. So asking the questions, which we'll talk about in a minute as well, in terms of getting that moving. So we've got, again, I've gone through this before. So the internal listening, what I'm listening to might be something completely different. You could be writing down something right now. That's not what we're talking about here today. That's okay. Get yourself back in the game if that's the case, and think about what the person in front of you is talking about. Now, you're not usually listening with the client as much as I'm talking here today, but it could be a colleague or something. Do you really need to listen, and how do you do it? Looking in their eyes, nodding, doing all those lovely things. And in an ideal world, we would be doing global listening to everything, what's going on in the room, especially if it's a group. So if you're going to a client and there's 4 or 5 players from that company there, or it's personal lines and you've got 2 people in your office, and you know, you're trying to listen to both of them. Because the fact that one person's quiet could be saying something in itself. In terms of who's actually purchasing this. Are there risks that they're worried about? Are they actually opening up? So one of my favorite slides, as you know, is probably this one if you saw this before. Does anyone remember what this stands for? Anyone remember? I'll give you a tip. Why am I? What do you think? Why am I? If I'm trying to listen, why am I? Talking. Thank you for that. It's one of my favorite slides of all time, and I think every leader should remember this. For those of you that are great listeners, kudos to you. It's one of the skills that we see least often, especially at the very senior space, in the executive space. So why am I talking? If I'm talking, then my employee isn't talking to me, my client's not talking to me. What they're doing is listening to me spout off about something or give my opinion on something. Wouldn't it be more interesting to ask their opinion, ask their perspective, understand more about them? Employee, how do you peel back those layers to get to know them better? So why am I talking? So that might be helpful for those of you that haven't seen it before. In terms of questions, again, we're just going to do a quick little repeat here of some things we've already talked about. But in terms of, you've got your closed questions, you've got your leading questions, which you can read, like closed questions, yes and no answers, and an exercise I make people do, which is so painful, and I did it a few times in the last couple of weeks, but I was traveling, was around making yourself ask only open-ended questions. It's not something natural for us, but if I ask the question and all you're doing is answering yes or no, I'm doing way too much work. I'm not learning a lot. I'm not having the person think very hard. So how do you ask open-ended ones? Clients, customer, future customers, employees, teammates. How are we actually drawing out what's going on in their head? I can't change someone's mind, or I can't understand what they need unless they start talking. So how do I know what they think as an employee? How do I know what they need if I don't ask them? But not, what's one thing I could do more or less of to be supportive for you? You know, what do you actually need? What support do you need with that project? Asking questions open-ended are extremely helpful, and they will always give you more information to work with. Delegation. So short-term pain, long-term gain. It's something that, as I did a small bit on delegation over the last 7 months, and delegation is one of the things I see, one of the most often things I see. It frustrates team members when people hold on to things too tightly, don't delegate. There's lots of good reasons why we don't delegate, because we don't think we have enough time, which can be true. It's something that we think, oh, it's just easier for me to do myself, or I don't think the person's capable, I don't trust them. So I hear that stuff all the time. So if that's why people don't delegate, then what does it mean, really? So there's things that we have in our world right now, and I went through this exercise before, writing down what are the things that you do all day. If you could get 2 or 3 hours in your week, think about it, 2 or 3 full hours where you could actually focus on the reason why you really are in that company, the reason why you got hired, and that brings the most value and profitability to the company, the most, impactful things that you do. So all the things that you do, what are things that you can delete that you actually are doing? Do I need that report? Why do we do that report again? Is it something that can be put off, but it's just something you're used to doing, but another big project or something else is being put off and delayed when it shouldn't be, or it could be delayed, right? Some things can be delayed over others, even though we're used to doing them. Is there some role that I have that can be diminished? So am I going to meetings I don't need to be there? If my colleague or my direct report is there, why am I there again? Why do we have multiple layers of people going to meetings? Is there something that you can pull back on and distribute, right, to others? So again, when you look at the 4 Ds, there are absolutely things right now that you guys can stop doing and delegate. And then you worry about who it's going to be delegated to. If you're a super small organization, yes, it's more challenging. But if you've got some capacity, even in another office, there's nothing to say that if you're delegating to a team member, that team member, you don't want them to be overwhelmed, which is a reason I hear people don't delegate. So why can't you then brainstorm who else can help with some things that that person can delegate, things that they don't need to be doing? Maybe it's administrative and you need to help with clients, some client work. Who else is doing admin that can help out, right? I'm sure they'd be happy to do so, because it can be very inspiring and exciting and engaging for staff. So very quickly, we only have a few minutes. I want to get through the last couple. So questions. So is there someone actually who can do this? Is it something that's an opportunity for someone to learn and grow? Is it something that recurs? That's a no-brainer. If it's a one-off project, then yeah, you can delegate a project to, absolutely. But it's easier when it's something that recurs, because they could take on something that recurs, like a report they could put together, or maybe a piece of a report they could put together that you do maybe quarterly or monthly. Do you have enough time to delegate effectively? Worst thing you can do is take it back. And if you're a person who's high in control, how do you actually delegate in a way that the person, you feel comfortable? Okay, so the person may need a lot of support, but maybe they feel pretty independent and you're not comfortable with that because you don't know what's going on. Maybe you meet with them once a week. Maybe they send you updates. Whatever makes you feel comfortable to delegate, as much as what makes them feel comfortable. And is it something that you can delegate? Some things just can't be delegated. So obviously you're not going to delegate doing performance reviews with your staff, which of course on occasion you might actually think might be a good idea. But things you obviously can't. So conflict. So we don't do a lot of conflict in many cases. Now, those that are more commanding style might be people who can bring about put some engagement, some conflict on the table. So healthy conflict is absolutely worth doing. So if it's respectful, it's listening, it's dynamic and engaging and sharing your information. That's what healthy conflict is. Versus unhealthy conflict is around territories and being right and someone being wrong and hostile. We'd never be anywhere in the world today if we didn't have conflict. As a woman, I wouldn't be able to vote if we didn't have conflict. So there is absolutely healthy conflict in debating in a respectful way and bringing that about in your team. Now, this is a little fuzzy on the screen, so I apologize, but I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Don't ever forget you have to show the caring. It could simply be, how you doing? I know it's been a tough week. How you doing? Right? Do you need any help on that report? I know it's due tomorrow and you have a lot on your plate. Simple little things you can do to show you care. Okay, make a huge difference as a leader. If people will stand by you, there will be more trust, there will be more support and openness, and they'll feel more engaged, and they know they will go the extra mile for you. Don't ever forget that. Last thing I want to bring up, I've been asked a lot lately to work with teams on respectful workplace. So I'm just going to ask a couple of quick things. I know we're running short on time, but it's such a big topic now. And with the movements that are happening and people speaking up, I'm getting a lot of requests around this. And respectful workplace, I don't mean a policy itself. I mean, why do we care about being respectful in the workplace? One question is, what does disrespectful look like? Just can you pop in a few things, like what were things you'd see that would be disrespectful in the workplace? Just pop in a few quickly. So what would be something that looks like is disrespectful? Rude to another person, absolutely. Now, we're not going to get into it because it's a whole topic in itself, but having said that, what is it actually rude to me might look different than to you. So any of you that sort of remembers when I talked about the golden rule and treating others as they want to be treated, understanding the impact. We all go in with great intentions into the workplace. We all go in wanting to do a good job. But yes, on occasion, I may say something that someone else finds upsetting. For them, it might absolutely be rude, right? So how do you create an environment where people give feedback to each other, which we talked about before, giving feedback to each other so that you can nip it in the bud. Was when I spoke at a conference, that's what I call it. How do you nip this in the bud? So it doesn't escalate, because what happens is when I think you're rude, and I have this little thing in my stomach that I get this strange feeling, and all of a sudden it grows and it grows and it festers. And I've created you to be this big monster in my mind, right? It only gets worse if you don't deal with it. So in terms of who's responsible, everyone's responsible. Now, but you have to be in an environment where it's trusting. So if I'm actually the person who offended someone, if you said to me, oh, Heather, when you said this, it really made me feel uncomfortable, chances are extremely high I did not mean to do that. So just hearing it and stopping the behavior, absolutely. This is not my intention. The person knew it wasn't my intention, but it came out the wrong way, or I said a word that wasn't appropriate. If I'm the target, yeah, if I feel my job, theoretically, if I'm in an environment where it's trusting and I know the organization would be respectful, if I brought it up to the person and told them, or if I went to someone else and told them. If I'm an observer and I see someone being rude to someone else, there's an obligation there as well. And as leaders, we are absolutely at a higher standard. We have to notice things, we have to see things, we have to look at what's actually could be seen as what's respectful or not respectful. Very important. Whether you have a respectful workplace policy and a protocols is irrelevant in many ways. Are you showing honor to your team members, value? Are people being thoughtful and having regard for others and holding people in esteem and being considerate? Those are some basic things about being respectful. So if you look at your teams, a very quick snippet here on respect, but it's such a thing I hear about in the last couple of months. It's been extraordinary how many people have been reaching out to me. So understanding your reactions, understanding what's happening. And as a leader, sometimes we wait too long to address things, and it will fester. So the best thing you can do is nip it in the bud, have the conversations. And if you're out of line and if there's no issue at all, that's great. People know you care and you're noticing and you're listening, okay? So again, not much time to get through this one here, but taking responsibility for what you do, being empathetic, sensitive to others, noticing your impact with others, thinking about what you say, having a sense of confidentiality there as well. I've got a separate C and D I'm putting in there. When in doubt, you're checking it out. As a leader, you're telling also others how their actions have affected you or those around you. You have to walk the talk here. So you have to be the one above the line. You see it, you have to own it and fix it and do it whenever you can. So as a leader, we've talked about so many things in the last while, and a bunch are just here. I want you to start thinking about what is one thing really that stands out above all. I'm going to get you to put in the chat if that helps. because you're the one who's got to know the way, you got to go the way, and you got to show the way as a leader. So what's one thing out of all the sessions you've been in, or even just today, if that's all you did was today, I want to know, for me to know I brought some value, can you pop in the chat one thing that you want to do more of or less of moving forward? It could be a topic too. It doesn't have to be anything specific. So what's something that made a difference for you that you're going to think about? Because this is all about behavior change. This isn't around just listening to me talk. This is around taking something, a new perspective, a new idea, and making a difference in your team as a leader. So if you can pop some stuff in the chat for me, that would be brilliant. It also helps you, if you write it out, to feel more committed to it. And I want to thank you all so much for your participation. It's been really fun. And have a lovely summer. It's not terribly summery out here in St. John's right now, but hopefully it is in the other parts of the Atlantic Canada that you're in. So send me a note in the chat and have a lovely summer. And by all means, if there's any questions on anything, you can reach out through Carrie or Debbie, who helped out today, or certainly reach out directly. I'm happy to send you an article or anything that you need. All right, thanks so much, everyone, and pop it in the chat, and we'll have a look at what you wrote. Thanks, everyone.